Saludos, it's your host, Gabe Morales, continuing with our series on corrupt cops and corrections officers. Today, we are going to discuss a group known as the Green Wall that operates within the California Department of Corrections. As many of you know, I worked at New Folsom State Prison, known today as California State Prison, Sacramento County, from 1987 to 1993. As a brand new fish cop straight out of the academy in Galt, California, located just south of Sacramento, I listened to good seasoned officers, sergeants, and lieutenants who seemed to have a good head on their shoulders. They showed me the ropes and emphasized it was not good to incite individuals already proven to be violent and who did not have a lot of self-control. But they also advised me not to be intimidated by them either, and to always watch your back, or watch your six, as we say. On the other hand, I stayed away from old guards, sergeants, and lieutenants who seemed to get joy out of escalating prisoners and frequently got themselves into bad situations. I soon realized that watch your back did not apply to just convicts, but unfortunately, be careful with some of your own staff as well. Now, there were a few corrupt guards who worked in New Folsom Prison. I remember in particular B Yard. B facility was considered to be a hard yard, meaning that it had many hardened convicts and many who had already previously assaulted staff and other prisoners. And some guards felt that some of these individuals needed an occasional attitude adjustment, or tune-up, which is code speak for corporal punishment. And anybody who opposed their tactics were branded to be inmate lovers. And I know a few of those who got caught. Some lost their jobs over CDC policy violations, and a couple even did time over it. Back then, I don't remember the term green wall being used. However, in 1991, when I worked the A5 Violence Control Unit, my lieutenant recently had transferred in from Corcoran Security Housing Unit, also known as the SHU. And he told me he left because he didn't like what he saw there. He often observed inmates getting off the bus during transfers who hadn't done anything to officers. Yet, as soon as they got off, they were beat down and told, "Welcome to Corcoran." A Hollywood movie came out in 2008 called Felon. It was largely based off of staff abuses and cockfights set up by guards there at Corcoran. And my lieutenant told me of many stories that were depicted in that movie. He told me that guards often bet on the winners of inmate fights that were set up during recreation time. Basically, they would pick out some of the best fighters from different prison gangs and put them out together and see who would win. Then they often shot at them with block guns. This is all depicted in the movie, and I'll show some clips from the trailer.
Somebody's in the house.
Wait, what's happening?
Stay in the house! I said stop!
Mr. Porter, for your conviction in count 1, this court sentences you to 3 years in state prison.
Once you leave that courtroom, society's rules no longer apply.
Get over there and show them what you made of.
Trust me, sir, I have it all under control.
I'm the one in here stuck doing time.
You think I'm not doing it too?
I am all out of favors, you understand me?
You're an island now, in a sea of sharks.
That is the enemy down there, officer. You show any weakness, and they will send you a message.
Your life is defined by a single action. You change the concept of time.
Whether you like it or not, you going into that yard, and one of you ain't coming out alive.
Felon.
Like I said, that movie was very realistic, and there was a couple things that were Hollywood in it. But I remember being told that the same thing occurred at Pelican Bay State Prison, in particular, their SHU, which opened in 1989. And a lot of the prisoners that went to Pelican Bay and Corcoran came from Folsom Prison and other level 4 yards. The majority of these were prison gang members or associates, and they engaged in a lot of violence against each other. I saw a lot of riots occur, a lot of stabbings, some even resulted in homicides. And I remember staff saying that it was better they take out their anger on each other than on us.
Place in 2 outdoor recreation yards located in the prison's Unit B. A total of 6 inmates were hurt, including 2 who had to go to the hospital because they received multiple stab wounds. Afterwards, inmates were confined to their cells as the facility went into lockdown.
During these stabbings and riots, many times convicts were shot by tower officers, or if it happened inside the unit, by control unit officers. And yes, I have fired my weapon in the line of duty, as well as use my baton in violent incidents that occurred inside the units. In one situation where we did 21 cell extractions, there was 2 teams. I was baton man in that, where we had to use force against prison gang members, in particular the Aryan Brotherhood and the Mexican Mafia, within the Violence Control Unit, A5, mainly in A section. And so what I'm saying is I've been involved in proper use of force. I know what that looks like. I also know what improper use of force looks like. And you should know that most officers that I saw did not abuse their authority. They only did what they had to do in controlling inmates. And when it was over, they stopped. There was no beatdowns. There was no revenge. Nothing like that. We wrote our reports, and I'm sure the convicts felt there was nothing personal. In fact, some of them even apologized after these incidents to me. And some of these war stories are mentioned in my autobio, The Life and Times of a Vato Loco. DJ Vodicka is a former corrections officer who worked at Corcoran, and he reported some of the abuses he saw, and he was harassed for it until finally he left the department. His career, like mine, encompassed the rapid expansion of the California Department of Corrections, indeed, corrections departments all over the United States, that many called mass incarceration of the 1980s and 90s, mostly due to the drug war and gang wars on the streets, tied to controlled drug markets. For 16 years, Vodicka worked in some of California's highest security prisons, and during one of his assignments, he even belonged to the Elite Investigative Services Unit, ISU. They were responsible for investigating major crimes and looking into use of force incidents. Vodicka was a veteran decorated corrections officer and became what many consider to be the biggest whistleblower ever on the California Department of Corrections when he blew the lid open on a secret society of corrections officers, commonly referred to as the Green Wall. This was named after their uniforms. He even went to Sacramento to testify before the state Senate, exposing a scandal that resulted in many resignations, transfers, sudden retirements, and criminal justice reforms of the system that are still underway today. His experiences are laid out in his book that I understand was just recently banned by the California Department of Corrections from being in inmate property. It is called The Green Wall, the story of a brave prison guard's fight against corruption inside the United States' largest prison system. The Green Wall was active at Pelican Bay, Corcoran, Salinas Valley State Prison, Pleasant Valley State Prison, among others. In California, every prisoner knows not to piss off the Green Wall, which is said to be basically a secret gang of rogue officers. They are a small but tightly knit group, and you can be sure anybody who crosses them from within will be subject to discipline or harassment. Anybody who crosses them from outside the group can be subject to the same or worse, possibly even death. According to Prison Legal News, which is a pro-inmate rights publication and website, 9 guards assigned to California's maximum security Salinas Valley State Prison, including some who belong to the Green Wall, were fired on November 8, 2004, as disciplinary action for assaulting a prisoner and then conspiring to keep the beating secret. A 10th official said to be involved in the incident was demoted. The actual assault occurred in October 2003 when prisoner Harry Steven Serrano refused to leave an exercise cage and returned to his cell. Reports state that guard Walter Faulkner led the movement to remove Serrano from the cage and told other guards who were working the surveillance tower to turn off the video cameras and recording devices before he entered Serrano's cage. According to reports, Serrano was then pushed to the ground, where other guards proceeded to pounce on him and beat him. One guard kicked Serrano while he is pinned down, according to former warden Ed Cadden, who has since retired, and also became a whistleblower. It was discovered that afterwards, guards and their supervisors conspired to cover up the incident. Every time a use of force is implemented, use of force reports are supposed to be filled out. None was in this case. And these guards and supervisors involved in the case told their subordinates to lie to investigators. When the assault was referred for prosecution, the Monterey County District Attorney's Office, where the prison was located, initially stated that it was unable to press charges because none of the guards would talk. Besides Faulkner, other fired staff members included Sergeant Fernando Chavez. Both had been disciplined before in 2001 and were subject to a 5% pay cut for covering up a different beating conducted by members of the Green Wall. Also fired was Lieutenant Clarence Van Hoos, Sergeant Robert Perrin, and guards Kevin Rawolf, James Benefield, and Daryl Makinga. It is stated that the prior 2001 incident that implicated Faulkner and Chavez resulted in an investigation by the IG's office, that is the State Inspector General, which is a prison watchdog group. But the IG's findings were watered down by Warden Anthony Lamarck, who was stated to be a sympathizer of the Green Wall. They were his kids, later stated Warden Cadden. So a lot of these incidents are hard to prove, because the Green Wall's code of silence entails that they have dirt on each other, so they have good reason to cover up past violations of policy. And so they'll band together under the slogan CYA, cover your ass. Cadden states that he was chief deputy warden at Salinas Valley State Prison in 2001, but didn't even know about the incident until he became warden in February 2004. Upon finding out additional information, he immediately asked for investigation and support of CDC headquarters. But instead of being rewarded for being a whistleblower, he was transferred out to headquarters, where he alleges they could keep an eye on him. And this reassignment abruptly terminated his executive warden status. He then went public with this demotion and retired after an illustrious 28-year career. Cadden has criticized CDC for not taking the Green Wall serious, and for past Secretary of Corrections Rod Hickman of paying lip service and bowing down to the Green Wall and the Union. In the case of the 9 staff that were fired for the Serrano case, 5 were fired for being directly involved in the beating, while 4 were fired for failing to report it. Many say this actually was a very rare occurrence, that anybody was held accountable. It is well known that the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, of which I was also a member when I worked in CDC, has a proven track record of getting more than 60% of all guard firings reversed. For instance, in 1996, 8 guards were fired for viciously beating a prisoner who got off on a prison bus at Corcoran State Prison, much as I described earlier. All these staff members were reinstated with back pay, including an associate warden who knew about the incident and was allowed to retire. Now, of course, unions exist in most professions in order to protect employee rights and protect them from administrative abuse. But it's my experience working in multiple correction systems that many times union representatives themselves are some of the worst violators of policy. And so basically, they use the union as a shield to hide behind and to use it to gain preferable assignments, and will intimidate any other staff members who oppose them due to their union powers. Now, in all fairness, I've known some very good union board members also, so it would not be fair to say that they're all like this. But I've seen some who are. And you might say, well, that was all old news. Police and corrections systems have been reformed. I agree they're a lot better than they used to be, but as recently as October 2022, news headlines read, Northern California prison guard gets 12-year prison term for killing inmate.
A California correctional officer is sentenced to more than 12 years in federal prison for causing the death of an inmate. 40-year-old Arturo Pacheco was escorting a 65-year-old inmate whose hands were cuffed behind him when he grabbed and pulled the inmate's legs from under him. Well, that inmate landed face first on the concrete floor, breaking his jaw and several teeth, and he died of a pulmonary embolism 2 days later.
The article went on to say that a CDC correctional officer was sentenced to federal prison for causing the death of an inmate in 2016 and pepper spraying another because apparently he thought it was funny. Now, when these incidents happen, I can almost guarantee you they're not a one-time thing. Almost always these guys have abused prisoners prior and got away with it until finally, like in this case, it results in serious injury or death. It was found out that 4 months earlier, Pacheco pepper sprayed a calm and compliant 54-year-old prisoner, and he later also called that incident funny in a text message, according to a plea agreement that he made in July 2022. These were ugly and shocking incidents, but the kind that happen all too frequently in CDC and some corrections agencies across the country. Staff behavior, just like inmate behavior, if gone unchecked, usually only results in worse behavior. And as is past practice, usually jail directors and prison wardens have the final say-so if staff are fired, almost always after consulting with union staff. A new proposed plan within the California Department of Corrections would create a new division that is supposed to be more independent to review alleged abuses. And in fall 2002, CDC also moved to have the appeals process moved to a separate division. I understand that plans to implement these new rules will be made in July 2023. Like I said, in the past, seldom have staff been held accountable. The Inspector General's office found that California Department of Corrections wardens cleared more than 98% of prison employees who were accused of misconduct, which is even higher than when the last review was conducted, when it was only 97% cleared. Again, I'm not undervaluing employee unions. I myself was union vice president. It is a thankless job. You get complaints from your own, who probably should be fired, as well as flack from administrators who think you're complaining about everything. Since 1982, corrections officers in the California Department of Corrections have been represented by the California Correctional Peace Officers Association. And I've known several key individuals within the CCPOA, including longtime President Don Novi, who started off working at Folsom Prison, as did his father. It is very common in California Department of Corrections that employees have relatives who also worked within the agency. Not saying that is the case with Novi, but I have seen favoritism or nepotism with some. The situation in California Department of Corrections is not unique. In fact, there are some departments that are far worse as far as staff conduct. California Department of Corrections officers are some of the highest paid corrections officers in the nation, and you expect a higher quality of recruit, better training, and more accountability with that. I've heard a lot of stories over my 30-plus career, and even since my own retirement, about corrections officers facing harassment from their own. I personally know that it is very hard to prove if there are no cameras or recordings or witnesses to these acts. I understand that recently more cameras have been placed inside units, like at Pelican Bay. Now, I know some police officers don't like body cameras, and some corrections staff don't like cameras in the unit. But how I always felt about that, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. In fact, these videotapings may go in your favor and protect you against false accusations because inmates sometimes lie. A lot of these previous incidents are hard to prove. And other than DJ's book, I could not find much posted on the internet about the Green Wall. That's how secretive it is. Some even state they don't even exist, that it's all made up. But come on now, what do you believe? As I showed in previous episodes, corruption has existed at the LA Sheriff's Department, LA Police Department, and you will see some future episodes detailing documented facts and abuses in other police and corrections departments across the nation. It exists everywhere in the United States and is even worse in other parts of the world. It exists anywhere where there's a human element that chooses to abuse their authority. I could say so much more, but if you're interested, you can see another episode on this subject that I have on this channel called Prison Gang Investigators and Personal Politics. I don't mean to demean the profession. I strongly believe that most staff are hardworking, brave, moral men and women, just doing their jobs and want to go home alive at the end of the day, just like most of us. Not many people are willing to do this job, watching over some of the most violent criminals in America, so the rest of us can sleep good at night. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Always remember to be respectful and considerate of others, or your comments will be removed and you may be blocked. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off. Gangsters, cops, and politicians.